Welcome to the garden, friends. Today I'm planting my hanging pots. So my front porch is a unique place. I'll tell you all about it, but it gets blasted by the south sun. You can see it's to the south, it's open, it gets south sun all day. Up by the house, it gets some shade. So I'm gonna show you the mix of ferns I use on it because some of them can take sun. I grew up in a house that had ferns on the front porch, north side, which you can see right behind me, that farmstead, that's my mom. That's where I grew up. And we had beautiful Boston ferns on the front porch all year long. She still does that, iconic. I can't do that on the south side where they get the sun. So I've switched the ferns I use. Kimberly Queen, love it. I'm gonna tell you all about it. We're gonna pot them up. I'm gonna kind of explain my process for them, what they need, and then also some different ferns I use up against the house where it stays mostly shaded. We're just gonna get a little bit of the front porch ready for some porch sitting weather, those morning coffee times, those great kind of moments when friends come over. I love the porch, so let's get started. So before I start planting anything, I just kind of want to show you, this is, right now we're early spring, so the weather's beautiful. When it's blasted by the sun, it still feels nice and comfortable outside. But in the middle of the summer, this is hot. The floor of the porch is cement, so it can really retain heat. It can really bounce off that heat too. So while up against the house can be very shaded, it can be very cool, and it can take, a lot of things that kind of can take some shade. Out towards the front where I have hanging pots, those really need something that can take the sun and the blast of the sun. They even get some southerly wind, especially when it comes through on a hot day. So I really want to make sure I have things that can handle that. So you're going to see behind me what we're working with today. So I have my little planting, this is my roving planting area. But really what we're going to do for all the pots, I started doing this probably 3-4 years ago, are Kimberly Queen ferns. Now there's different varieties of Kimberly Queen ferns. What I like about them is they have that same fern, kind of appeal, but they're more upright and they're also a much sturdier frond. So you can see here, these ferns have somewhat the same texture, but see how they're a little bit smaller of little leaves on them. They stay more upright and they're much more sturdy, which in the wind is really nice. Down below, I have that tiger Boston fern, which I'm gonna put by the door. What I like about it is it has that bright chartreusey color, but it's mixed with the green. This is a Boston fern, so you can see the leaves are a little bit bigger. They're a little bit more, I'm not gonna call them a weak, but they're just not quite as sturdy, but they also prostrate outwards more so than a Kimberly Queen. I love both varieties, but I think it's just important to note, even if you think you don't have the right, shade or sun for certain plants, you can usually find plants that can mimic that. So I can't put these in full sun, they would burn. I can put these and have for many years and they do really well. We have my helper Kip here, don't worry. I don't have one potting area, I don't have a potting shed, I don't have a greenhouse, so I kind of just go wherever it works best for me. My gator, this ATV, four-wheeled wonderful gator that I drive all around my yard with, it becomes my roving potting shed. Now last year, I got new hanging hanging pots if you want to call them that. They're 17-inch. What I liked about them was they're kind of a more antique style, kind of Victorian period. They had a lot of these wire. What I like about these are powder coated, so they should hold up pretty well. They are cocoa lined, so they have this cocoa liner that you can see has that nice texture. I love the look of these liners. What I was worried about last year was with southerly winds, you can hear the wind today, I was worried they were gonna dry out a lot. Honestly, it worked really well, and I don't feel like I had a problem. So I'm doing big 17-inch planters because I have 6 big spaces around my porch, and I like it to fill in with something, and that's why I'm doing the fern here. So whenever I'm doing this, I save some years and I don't other years. I have a small plant room that I keep as many plants as I can inside. And I did save a couple of my tiger ferns. I'm gonna use them on the back patio this year. That's why I got 2 new ones. These I saved 2, and I am using them in other containers over by my garage. So for on the front porch, since I kind of want them all to match, I got 6 new ones, and these were on sale. So really, I thought the price was quite good, honestly. And since I saved so many other plants, but I can't save all plants, I thought it worked really well. Now, the one thing I always notice whenever you buy these, they are very grown into their container. So when you come up to these, you're gonna see, look how tight these are. So I'm getting, it's probably called a number 2, even though it's probably only 1.5 gallon, but they fit perfectly. You can see, I did this last year too. They fit perfectly inside. I used to start with a very small start. that was probably just a 6-inch size pot, maybe a 5 or 6-inch size pot. And it was always by the end of July, they started really getting full and growing in. And I realized I'm wasting a lot of my life every year waiting for them to grow in. So I now do get a little bit larger fern so I can enjoy it for longer, and it just looks nice longer. You know, I think when it comes to things like annuals or plants, we all pick and choose different things. And this is one where I'm like, I think it's worth spending a little bit more and just having it look nice right away. Now, I will always, for all my outdoor plants, use Espoma's all-purpose potting soil. I love this. You know, there are different potting soils for like cactus and succulents that I do enjoy using, but if it's my go-to, I'm always using the all-purpose mix. It has just that right consistency with different things added to it, that it holds on to moisture needed, but also drains really well. So what I always start by doing, and all these cocoa liners, I usually can get a few years out of. These are not brand new. I mean, I've had these now. These liners are 1 year old, but in the past I've had these for like 4 to 5 years usually before I have to replace any. I'm always gonna put a little bit of soil in the bottom, and then I'm gonna actually mix this. Ferns are shade loving, and like a lot of other shade loving plants, they love some slight acidity to their soil. So I like to put in a little bit of holly tone when I'm planting these. Now I don't do a lot, I do just a little bit, because I'm not someone that if I don't have to, when things aren't blooming, I really don't like to have a huge fertilizing schedule. So I add a little bit of holly tone to each pot. Holly tone works on a lot of things that are, you know, like acid. So it works on all hydrangeas. It works on my hosta. All those things work really well, just like ferns, both in the ground and in a pot. So that's why I always try to start with something like that. Now, when it comes to, these are usually grown in like a peat material or something that's a little bit lighter weight. I always take a little bit off the bottom, and then around the top here, I like to score it. Sometimes with a knife. I will always like to go in, see how tight it is up here? I like to go in with something and just kind of cut that open a little bit every so often. You know, the thing is, these roots, they get so tight that they don't always want to branch off into the new soil. So when I can, I go into them and I just give them a nice kind of cut all the way around to just kind of break up their pattern of how they're growing. And then I think they just do a little bit better with kind of wanting to do new growth out into the soil. So don't be scared. I think so often doing certain things, we're scared we're going to kill the plant. We're not going to kill the plant. I have yet to kill a plant from cutting on its roots. I have killed a plant from not watering it. That's more likely. Once I have this all put together, which you can see, I put soil all around it, but do you see how already it fills in this container really well? I don't know if you're like me, but growing up, we never bought pre-made hanging pots. It was definitely a thing. It's more of a thing now, but we always put together our own because it was so expensive, especially for mom at the time. We didn't have a lot of, extra money to spend on plants. So she would always get her own and put some things together, sometimes by ferns. Now, if you always want to save on money, I still do this sometimes. I will take a nice big fern like this and I will cut it in half. You can split it apart. You could cut it into 3 even if you wanted to. You will have a smaller start to start with. It will take it a little bit longer to grow in, but that works. We can do those things. It's hard because we see kind of everyone everywhere, it seems like, spending money on lots of big plants. I don't think it's bad to look for ways to save, and I think we all look for them in different ways. Now, I am someone that started a few years ago. This is a senecio that I saved. I have a few pots of this every year, and do you know what this is from? I dug it up. This is from a couple of my hanging pots last year. So what I do, you can do this in a couple ways. So I don't remember which one this is. I don't think it's string. It might be string of bananas is kind of like a street name for it. When I don't know the Latin name, I just say the street name. That's what I call things. I break pieces off, and I like how this looks growing in my hanging pot. So sometimes I take the roots out too and do it. But what I like to do is just dry cuttings where I take off some, maybe like 2 inches, see? And I just stick it in the pot in different areas and it roots. It'll take it a couple weeks maybe to root, but eventually this will just start growing. And then all around, I have this beautiful trailing senecio that loves the sun. And while the senecio really likes dry conditions, the ferns obviously don't want to stay too dry. So I still definitely water them. And the senecio can adapt to either one, kind of dry or that moist environment. So it's been doing really well for me. But if I stick it all around it, I've just been loving what it does all summer. And it gets so long that eventually it usually touches the floor of the porch from these hanging above it. And there is the last one hanging up. Now I don't water them until they're up, only because they get pretty heavy. So usually I try to keep them up. Now when it's raining, I will set them down out into the yard, but the first time here, they're gonna get pretty heavy when I start to water them, so I like to do it once they're up. But you can see all the senecio, if I twist this one around, do it 4 up to 6 times around, and it will actually just root in now from being cut off and put into the soil. It's one of my favorites. So behind me, you can see that they already start adding a little bit more of kind of seclusion back here, which I like. It makes it feel more intimate. But I have these 2 big cast iron antique urns here by the door. I do have drip line that I brought up from my other drip line in the flower bed that can have, you know, little drips, little emitters that come off into the containers. It's not going yet, so that's why you see those pipes and kind of little tubes behind there. But these 2 urns, what's nice about them is they do have a little reservoir in the bottom. You could have them drain so they don't get too wet. I just watch the water. It does come out here too as an overflow. So they don't just, you know, keep the water in, they do drain. On the front porch, that does mean you can get, you know, running kind of spots from them. But other than that, I really like them. Antique things are never perfect, so I kind of just make do because I love them so much. You know, I always think they add such interesting story and beauty, but you can get a lot of replicas too. I use the same all-purpose potting soil in these containers. You know, over the years, I do find potting soil makes a huge difference on the quality of it. You know, just what it has in the soil, the way it drains, what kind of sustenance the actual plants need. And when I use this potting soil, they all do really well. I also always like to know the little white stuff, you know, those little white particles you see in soil. If you get really inorganic and not good quality soil, these end up being styrofoam, not good for the environment, not good for your plants in the long run. That's a form of plastic that can leach in. So this is actual, you can see this, it's perlite. It's a pumicey type stone, natural material. And so I really like to know that my good quality soil is always gonna have good quality ingredients. I'm gonna put a little bit of the holly tone in here, and then each of these come out super easy. Make sure to take off any of the pieces that are with it, and then I just set it in. So these are a little bit smaller, I will say, to start, but I mean, my goodness, in like a month already, they start growing so well in this area. And I don't put anything with them. I don't put any type of filler with them because these fill the whole container. If anyone doesn't think I make a mess, I do. I make a huge mess, and then I just get my leaf blower, and I usually blow off wherever I'm working. So if it's the front porch, I blow it off. You know, rather than laying down a tarp, I commend people that always go to all that work. I just get the leaf blower, and I blow it all off into the flower bed. You know, make it work for you. I am not someone that has extra time usually, so I try to make whatever I can work. But now these 2 are planted, and I can tell you, the heat, the humidity, they love that it stays shaded. They get a lot of bright light from the southern exposure, but you can see the sunlight stops. That's the farthest it gets to them. So they never get direct light. They just thrive right here, along with the hanging pots that thrive in more direct sunlight. A few years ago, my goal really started becoming, I want to make some outdoor spaces feel like outdoor rooms or living rooms almost. So in doing that, this is kind of always an awkward part of my front porch, but if you come to the front porch from the outside, it's right around the corner from the entry everyone comes into the house to. And it always felt like a little bit of a dead spot. And I'm not all done cleaning it up yet for the spring. But what I started doing was deciding to kind of decorate or put things around it as I would indoors. Since this is a covered porch, it's very protected around this corner. It is protected from west winds. It's protected from if the wind moves, kind of. So it's actually a really good spot to be able to put a few things, like these antique birdhouses I bought a few years ago at an antique show. And I just really wanted to have a place that I could display some more outdoor inspired items like I would inside. Now, during the growing season, I usually add plants, which I haven't brought all my plants out yet. I'm just starting to kind of bring all the plants out, but I'm kind of just wiping this area down and cleaning it up so I can start kind of enjoying it. Because, you know, after winter, after kind of a period of dormancy, everything looks a little sad. So this is a philodendron. It's supposed to be a miniature one, kind of like a salum, but a miniature one. I find that it is not wanting to be very miniature, but I still will bring some plants out and kind of accessorize this. I like to view it almost as a, maybe what would feel like a sunroom space. I put a few different plants up here. I have a couple cloches that I had in my basement that I bring out. I have my birdhouses. I just added this little guy recently. Isn't he cute? Just a little birdhouse. I think they're kind of fun to be able to have out and around here. And then even in front of it, I bring out certain things. Kind of a copper watering can that I don't actually use. It looks old. It's not old. It's new. Old ones like that are quite pricey. But then I have some more English kind of antique watering cans, and I even bring those out. And I'll bring, it kind of depends what plants I'm going to set around here. Usually it's a little bit more obviously shade-loving plants, but it still is nice to have a space that, one, if I'm walking around with my coffee in the morning, looking at plants, which I always do usually. In the summer, especially when it gets hot, I like to come out early, kind of assess things with some coffee. Last year, I put a fern in here. This is, I think, an old umbrella holder from probably a hotel or something, but I put it up on the wall as an urn or like a planter. It's a small enough planter, you can't put too much in there, but I did put a Boston fern in here last year. I can't decide, a part of me, these were left from over winter when I had some greens in it. A part of me just wants to leave the curly willow and kind of just let that live in here. I don't know if you guys have ideas for something. I would love if it was slightly drought tolerant, but it's for shade, so it's kind of hard. And I might just do a fern again too. It's just, it'd be nice to have something in there I don't have to think about. Thought it'd be good to do a little walking view so you can see what this area is like. You can see there's not really many plants yet. I haven't brought them all out. A big elephant ear will go in that pot. All the other small containers around. Maybe plant something in that wall urn. If you guys have ideas, let me know. But you can see now I'm starting to accessorize, put a few other things out. I'll clean it up a bit, but you can see all the hanging pots now. So when you come on and they keep growing in, you know, the oaks haven't even put their leaves on yet. So you can see this is really going to be intimate respite from the outside world, which is what I really love. Come out here in the mornings and the evenings, and I'm just able to kind of enjoy it. We have the ferns by the door. I brought out my birds of paradise, which after winter look a little sparse, and then they start putting off tons of new growth here soon. But you can see everything is now just getting ready to kind of be able to come into its own. I'll put a few containers of some small annuals or something here on there, but it's really coming together now. Being able to get the containers going, being able to get the ferns really kind of more happy and acclimated is always what I get excited about. It's just kind of putting the front porch together. Having this space that I know I'm gonna use throughout the season, both when I have friends over, family over, but also just in the mornings to myself, which is what I really enjoy. It's always shaded if you wanna sit out here, kind of no matter the time of day, unless you get out to the end where the ferns are hanging and it can get sunny. But let me know what your favorite spots are outside and what you're getting planting, because we're really getting into that exciting time where we put a lot of things together that we know we're gonna enjoy through the year. Happy gardening, friends.